I bring you a warning. Every one of you listening to my voice, tell the world. Tell this to everybody wherever they are. Watch the skies, everywhere. Keep looking. Keep watching the skies.
I think science fiction is the greatest exercise for the brain. It is just, it just is like Pilates for the brain, you know. It really stretches your beliefs that anything is possible. And the reason I'm so interested in science fiction is because I have this overactive imagination, and I've always believed from childhood that anything is possible, but only science fiction can let you go there.
I'm a strong believer that if you can imagine something, you can make it real. And, well, one thing movies do, in science fiction in particular, is that it re-allows you to see something, so it comes into your imagination.
I loved cinema inordinately, to the extent in those days you could sit down, you could go in at 2 and you come out at 10. So and you weren't turfed out with a person with a torch saying, "Oi, get out," you know. As the lights went up, I would just sit and wait. So I'd go and get an ice cream and wait, and I'd see it 3 times in the film.
There are so many films, science fiction films, that I saw as a kid and as a teenager that have just left indelible images. I can just go to that file and flip through it and see those pictures as if I had just seen it yesterday.
Some of Stephen Spielberg's indelible images are from the War of the Worlds. He had read H.G. Wells' classic novel before seeing the 1953 movie version. This probe has been sent out by aliens invading Earth with intent to colonize it. Spielberg's new film is a vast spectacle, more epic in scale than the 1950s sci-fi movies that haunted his childhood. But like those earlier films, it's a metaphor for the fears that began haunting everyone in the 50s. The atomic age ushered in the first great age of movie science fiction.
When you come through the Second World War, you've got a very specific enemy. You know what that enemy is. It's there for all the wrong reasons, and it should be prevented. Okay? Then you've got the next phase, which is the Cold War, again, which is to do with paranoia. But I think real. It's real. Movies started to nip into that.
But no matter where they go or what they do, they always try to remember what to do if the atom bomb explodes right then. It's a bomb. Duck and cover.
I would have to say that there was a certain amount of anxiety about that. I mean, I grew up right in the very heat of that. And we did the duck and cover drills all the time. We were always hearing about building fallout shelters, about the end of the world. Kind of issues were always going on. How many bombs were being built? The Cold War was very in the media.
All of our fate as human beings, our destiny, seems bound up in our technology. And our technology is frightening. It's terrifying. Wow, the splitting of the atom. Something that we can't even see. Some forces that can only be explained to us by these guys in white coats. All of a sudden, the guys in white coats became these kind of simultaneously rock stars and the most evil thing you could imagine.
Mom? If I grow up, do you know what I'm going to do?
It's when you grow up, dear, not if.
So there was a great deal of anxiety in the air. It was not just fear of being beaten up by the local bully, but the fear was being nuked. I was more terrified of being nuked than my parents were. My parents couldn't imagine that an intelligent nation like Russia would ever push a button on us, nor would we on them, but we almost pushed the button on each other during the Cuban Missile Crisis. My parents went to a party the day the crisis reached that critical. I was watching television, and I had filled all the bathtubs up with water. Just every sink in one bathtub in my mom's bedroom, I filled it up with water, because I figured the water's going to stop, they're going to turn the water off, and this will be our drinking water. We had no hole in our backyard. We had no basement in Arizona. But I was prepared for Armageddon. I was absolutely prepared for that. And these movies in the 1950s and early 60s played on those fears. And these movies were all metaphors for those fears.
People started to think about, okay, this is what we know, which is the blast, but what about what we don't know? Out of that fear came, I think, a lot of the monsters, which you mess around with stuff and you're going to unleash this unknown monster. It's making tangible the unknown. And I think a lot of that has to do with the mystery of this silent death that comes along with it, that nobody knows exactly what it is or where it came from, or can't see it, can't touch it. Well, let's make it easier to deal with by making it a giant monster that looks sort of like a dinosaur that we can actually look at and then shoot guns at and stuff and kind of cope with.
There was a whole string of movies that came out where the smallest creatures that we just step on our way to school turned out to be mutant giants that wound up stepping on us.
Hey, wait a minute. What are you doing out here, honey? Honey. What's your name?
That little girl they find wandering the desert, and she's just absolutely in shock, in a complete state of shock, and they try to get her to speak and she won't, and finally she hears that really great sound effect that the ants made. It was from a distance, that kind of chirp, that constant. And she just looks almost into the camera.
I was never frightened. I was curious, and I would be looking at the screen thinking, how'd they do that? How'd they make that as big?
I believed the ants in them. I mean, I knew there was a suspension of disbelief that kind of said these are kind of corny big things, but at the same time, they were scary enough to where I believed they were what they were.
And Edmund Gwenn came on the screen, I said, oh my God, there's Santa Claus, that's Kris Kringle, oh my goodness, Miracle on 34th Street. I was like, I couldn't believe he was in the science fiction movie.
Get the antennae! Get the antennae!
And so he brought credibility to the role because of the earlier picture he made.
Get the other antenna! Get the other antenna! He's helpless without the...
He was also the one that preached the gospel and gave the dire warnings to mankind and pointed his finger at mankind and said, we made this happen, we created this, we did this to ourselves.
Species appears to be Camponotus fichinus. One of the family Formicidae. An ant.
An ant? I don't believe it. It's not possible. Then this is what got Ed Blackburn and Gramps Johnson an arrest?
Yes. A fantastic mutation. Probably caused by lingering radiation from the first atomic bomb.
All these movies had some brainiac basically at some point or another saying, you know, we only have ourselves to blame for this.
Unless these queens are located and destroyed before they've established thriving colonies and can produce, heaven alone knows how many more queen ants, man, as the dominant species of life on Earth, will probably be extinct within a year, Doctor?
In the 50s, coming out of World War II, where every other guy walking around the street was a war hero for simply having survived the greatest action against evil that we could remember, you've got this lingering sense that the military saved us, that they're good guys, that they represent the best of us. And as the alien invaders, sometimes abetted by the scientists, sometimes created by the scientists, come in, it was always the guys with the tanks and the Tommy guns. The end of them, they're running around the sewers of Los Angeles with Tommy guns, shooting it out with the giant ants.
Ants are good because it's a known quantity, as long as you make it reasonably credible. I mean, everybody knows what an ant looks like, and everybody knows what an ant would look like if it were big. So if you make it look reasonably like an ant, you're okay. When you get into aliens or monsters and everything, then there is an aesthetic question of, is this a good enough monster to be what it's supposed to be? Are we getting our monster's worth out of it?
Here, the perfect fit. This will give you the full effect. You see, lots of character in the tail, plenty of fright. Need a little puffing up, but it'll be all right. Of course, you got to visualize it in the lights. You got to use your imagination. Shoulder pads, straighten it right out. This will give you the effect. It'll be good.
The secret is to not show the monster. The anticipation is greater than the reality, no matter what it is. When you have monsters from outer space or aliens, inevitably when you finally show the monster, it's a disappointment. When you try to make that real with film, you have to make it exist at some point, some way, that the illusion is there that what you're seeing. And that's always been a hard problem because it's really technical. And from Malaise on, it's been how clever are you?